hello, and welcome to another episode of The Dunker Spot. We are part of 342 Productions. I am your host, Nikias Duncan, and joining me as always is my co-host, Steve Jones Jr. Steve, how are you doing, sir?
Aha, feeling good, feeling great, happy to be here, excited to be here. Thank you, Dunkers, for once again embracing your bounce. Dunker Nation, let's ride. YouTube, hi, hello, hit that like button. There's nobody like y'all. Appreciate the support. But Nikias, it is time to hoop it up.
It is time to hoop it up indeed. Second round of the playoffs are here. W preseason things are here. We'll try to get to that towards the end of the podcast. I'm ready to dig in to a couple of more series. We had a game 6 with the Clippers and the Mavs that ended. So we officially have Luka versus Shea and all the things. We're going to talk about that series. We get Celtics Cavs as the result of the game 7 we got between the Magic and the Cavaliers on Sunday. Going to have some fun with that one. One of the, I guess, tougher things about recording on Mondays, we do have Knicks Pacers happening tonight. Not going to get to talk about the game 1. We will talk about that on the next episode of the pod. But if you do want our Knicks Pacers thoughts, one, we did 30 plus minutes of a full-blown preview on the last episode of Dunker Spot. So check that out and subscribe if you haven't already. We'd appreciate it. But if you want shorter thoughts, quicker thoughts heading into the series, we were on the Old Man the Three Things with JJ Redick. We talked about Knicks Pacers there, so you can at least get some of our thoughts there. And again, as the series goes on, and more specifically the next episode, we'll be digging into game 1 and talking about the series moving forward. So there's your Knicks Pacers thing. Before we dig into playoff series previews and the game 1 between the Wolves and the Nuggets, quick news update on the award front. As we record on this Monday afternoon, Rookie of the Year is going to be announced tonight. I think it is fair to assume that Victor Wembanyama is going to be your Rookie of the Year. So, Steve, just a question for you. There are 99 ballots. We do not have one, but 99 award ballots. Does Victor Wembanyama receive more than 96 first place votes?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think he'll end up being unanimous?
This very much feels like no. I feel like there's going to be a person, and social media will explode trying to figure out who did it.
I see. Which, it's funny because like they don't have to, considering the ballots are just released after everything is announced. So like you can't just wait a couple weeks and see who did it, or that person may step up. But I just had fun thinking about that earlier because I was like, I don't think Wemby's going to be unanimous. Like I think he's going to win. He's more than deserving, obviously. In the second half of the year in particular, just kind of sealed the case for him. But I do wonder how many of the efficiency plus impact on a winner votes Chet gets, which would also be deserved. Like, understand why he would have a case. But I don't know if Wemby ends up being unanimous. So I'm curious to see like how that rolls out once that rolls through. Later tonight, Defensive Player of the Year being announced on Tuesday, and the big boy, MVP, being announced on Wednesday. Cannot wait to see what the conversation is going to be like there. We'll be talking about that on the pod on Thursday. But there's your award update. Let's get into a couple of series previews. The Boston Celtics, the Cleveland Cavaliers. We don't know what the status is of Jared Allen with the rib or Kristaps Porzingis with the soleus strain. Not sure if either of those two are going to make an appearance in this series or when. But those are your primary injuries there. Also, Dean Wade, we'll keep an eye on him as well. During the regular season series, Boston won that series 2-1. The one win was the Dean Wade game, in which he just lost his mind from 3. That was the February matchup. But in typical fashion, of the 3 games, 2 of those played in December. And the third one, February 10th. So it's been a while since these 2 teams have matched up. They look a little differently. They're playing a little bit differently. Heading into this one, like, I'm intrigued. One, I kind of feel for Donovan Mitchell. Incredible close to the series against the Orlando Magic. Fun duel with him and Jalen Suggs, and just the collective size and length that the Orlando Magic have. You go from Jalen Suggs to now having to deal with some combination of Drew Holiday, Derek White. I'm sure he'll see at least some Jaylen Brown. He'll see some Jason Tatum on switches. Life of a number 1 option isn't easy. It seems like a tough start for your first 2 rounds of the playoffs, but I am excited to see what that duel is going to look like. But parsing through some of the regular season matchups between those 2 and how Cleveland wanted to match up. No Evan Mobley in 2 of the matchups, so that made it a little bit tricky. I wonder who Cleveland's going to start in this series. Because as we saw in the game 7, With no Jared Allen, we had Evan Mobley at the 5. Isaac Okoro slotted into the starting lineup. He was kind of your nominal 4 there. I was intrigued looking back at the December matchups and seeing how Jared Allen and Evan Mobley were deployed in terms of the matchups. We saw some Mobley on Jaylen Brown. We saw a lot of Jared Allen against Jason Tatum, most of that coming on switches. But there were a handful of possessions where Jared Allen just had the Tatum matchup. And I was like, wait a minute, that is interesting. And I think I cited throughout the regular season, we were talking about all defense things. I think Jared Allen defended the most ISOs in the league this year. So wouldn't be a surprise if they continue to switch. They did switch a bunch against Boston this year. I wonder if they go with Okoro just to get a little bit more perimeter defense, or if they want to size up at all. Do we see Marcus Morris as that 5th starter?
Do we see Marcus Morris in this series? Yes. Do we see Marcus Morris starting? I'm not sure. In my head, I'm thinking because of the potential comfort level of putting Strus on Jaylen Brown, or even Strus on Jason Tatum, even more the level of having Okoro on one of those two, likely Tatum, you probably go with those two plus your guards plus Evan Mobley. But the Jared Allen aspect of it does make it very interesting. The Porzingis aspect of it does make it very interesting because Cleveland, again, is a different team when they have 2 bigs and they can shuffle through the lineups where they only have 1. Boston still has Al Horford, who obviously we know can do a bunch of things on both ends of the floor to help this team. But then behind that, it does get a little regular with the big man room. They have options, but that's going to be drop. And that's going to be more of a role than a pick and pop role threat like Kristaps Porzingis. So how does that impact some of your lineup construction? Does that give Cleveland an opportunity? I'm intrigued by that portion of it. Because if Luke Cornett's going to play, could Tristan Thompson now soak up some more minutes, et cetera, some stuff like that. So it's tough to get a good feel on that part of it. Because if Jared Allen's going to be available for game 1, well, that's a different Cleveland team. And now Boston's got a couple other things they got to think about or worry about. Rebounds. You got extra help and protection in the rim. If not, and now it's a smaller version of Cleveland, how much does that help Boston do the things that they want to do?
It makes sense. And I'm glad you brought up just the level of comfort that Cleveland has had giving Strus the Tatum matchup. We saw that in some of the December games between the two. But that's where my mind started churning because I was just like, do they want, I guess it really just boils down to how they want to deploy Evan Mobley and where they see his value being best utilized. But I think we've seen in that Orlando series in particular, if he's just on non-shooter or is just able to be closer to the rim, he's going to have an obvious impact as a deterrent and just as a shot contester at the basket. Also, it was a lot of Evan Mobley against Paolo Banchero in that first round series. And Evan Mobley did one heck of a job throughout the course of that series. And because of his versatility, because of the length, because of his ability to mirror in space, I wonder if JB Bickerstaff looks at it and say, you know what, I might just prioritize having him on one of Jaylen or Jason to start. Let's see if we can bother them with the length. We can turn a lot of these ball screens into switches anyway because Mobley is comfortable switching everywhere. And that's where the Mobley piece came in my head. Put Marcus Morris on Al Horford so you at least have an element of size there versus like Okoro can do it. Like even looking at some of the, the ball screens or the handoffs or whatever with Kristaps Porzingis, like Cleveland was very comfortable switching that. You would have a Strus on Porzingis or a Okoro on Porzingis. So they're comfortable switching smalls onto them. I just wondered if JB would prioritize the size element of that and then kind of move Evan Mobley around the chessboard.
I think it's a fair point.